Welcome to the Carbcast podcast. I'm Oli and I'm here with my dad.
Emilio.
And we're back. It's been like a month and a half.
It's been longer than that, I think.
Is it really?
I don't know.
I
It's
don't
been a
know.
while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but now we're back.
Yeah.
I think just, holiday season got really busy and everything like that. You know,
Yeah.
everyone
Yep.
knows how it is.
Holiday and, well, mostly holidays, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at the end of the day, what else were we doing? Not much.
No.
Okay, it was a month ago. That's it.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No.
I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah, so did I. Let's see.
Anyway,
Yeah, the this topic that we have today is what did you say? Prepping.
well, you talked about gardening and I
Yeah,
said
yeah, yeah.
prepping,
Which
which
I think.
I think both of them kind of go hand in hand.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And this kind of
Maybe not
actually.
so much, well, when I think prepping, or what I feel like people think prepping is like preparing for the worst or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but also gardening and prepping could be just prepping for the next year.
it could be. It could be. I mean, prepping can be whatever you want it to be, but
Yeah.
I don't know what direction this will take us. But I mean, our last episode was on survival thoughts or our thoughts on survival.
Oh
So
yeah.
this kind of goes hand in
Yep.
hand. Prepping, survival. We've actually we somehow ended up talking about the same thing or like continuation, which I don't think we've ever done before. Every episode seems to be kind of different from each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good though.
Yeah, I mean, good variation, but yeah, now we you guys get to hear us talk about our thoughts on prepping and surviving again.
Again.
I don't know why, but
Well,
this.
and to me is like neither one of us really know anything about it, but
No, I think we just have. I think we'd have a little bit
ideas.
more knowledge than the average person. I would say,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, we're not experts by any
No.
means.
Well, a lot. I mean, that's one of those things where like you can really dive into that if you wanted to.
Hmm.
And it could probably really consume most of your life, which I think gardening, if depending on your garden, can really take up most of your summer.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I know people that have gardens, well, greenhouses and gardens, and um, they start like super early, like um, probably March, somewhere around there, and then go clear to October. So it takes them all season, and on top of that, all the harvest, they can and all that stuff, and so it's definitely
it's not
not an
easy.
easy task,
Yeah,
but
it's time
um,
consuming. But I think at the end of the
yeah,
day, from what I've seen people talk about and from what I just assume is it's pretty rewarding at the end of it.
yeah,
It's like not only do you get to eat your own food that you grow, but it's also like now it's a thought of, hey, I could do this if I need to, rather than
yeah,
just I do it as a hobby or something like that.
yeah. Well, yeah, and so I mean, you have that both sides of that. Like, I can do it, and then also, um, you have like the outcome of it. You got food for like a winter or whatever. But being able to redo that the next year, like you were saying, is just like, hey, I can do it, and also there's a great outcome out of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's I told you we had talked about this at work the other day. We were just chilling out, having a discussion, and pretty much the topics that we brought up were we basically just ask everybody around us what if we were to start a garden and stuff like that, what would we be planting? And
Oh yeah.
it was good to see what different people thought about
Mm-hmm.
different things
Yeah.
and the different knowledge that other people brought to it. Because I said something like potatoes, right? Because potatoes, they're a superfood,
Mm-hmm.
which means they're great for like what are they like lower? Are they lower in calories or higher in calories? I can't remember, but they're like incredibly good for you. You can grow a lot of them, and you can feed quite a bit. I mean, you could feed one person with just a giant potato. But and then as I brought that up, one of my coworkers had told me he's like, yeah, but growing potatoes is a real pain in the butt. And I was like, I had no idea. I just thought, they're like if they're potatoes, you like cut up a potato, you throw a couple of them in, and they just grow because they're like a root crop. But apparently, they're pretty hard to maintain and a lot of upkeep on them for some reason.
Huh. Um, I know for myself, I've grown them like probably once or twice,
Really.
and I would say the exact opposite.
See, and that's what I was thinking.
Uh, I really feel like they're super, super easy to grow. They're really easy to maintain because um, they're underground.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, that was a long time ago. I don't know what we put into it. I know we had to, with any garden, you have to weed. Like
Hmm.
you have to like every single day go out and weed. And I mean, you miss one day and it's like, holy cow, what the hell? Where do all these weeds come from?
Hmm.
Um, but as far as growing, I mean, other than weeding and watering, I really don't think there's a whole lot. I mean, they're underground, so they're protected.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I
I kind of looked it up, and it seems like everybody else says they're pretty easy, but he might have been referring to how long they have to grow because
yeah, they do
obviously,
take a long time. I think it goes depending on when you start them. It goes clear into October.
yeah,
Um,
it says 80 to 100 days, which is
yeah,
a long
yeah,
time, and maybe that's what he's talking about is that it's 80 to 100 days
yeah,
of constant, watering and blah 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 and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, and even at that, like at a certain point, I think towards the end, you have to be mindful of how much water you give them. I think because they pretty much kind of matured. Um, I think because I think if you, well, I think any kind of vegetable or fruit or whatever, you overwater, they can get the chance of mold and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they go way way late in the season, I think. But one of the cool things about them is, well, like you said, one potato could feed you
Hmm.
one person. I mean, depending on the situation, you could
Yeah.
probably eat one potato and be good for the day. Um, and I don't know nutrition wise
They're pretty
how well
healthy,
that would
but
be for
they're
a
obviously
long
missing out.
period of time, but I know if you take them and as long as they're kind of I would say aired out like on a rack or something in a cool place
Hmm.
like a basement, they'll last um until spring,
Really?
which is pretty cool. Yeah,
I never knew that. I had some potatoes that we got, and I didn't use them for like 2 weeks or something like that, and then they started growing those like little sprouts on it, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
well, I guess that it was the right climate to start growing.
yeah. Well, yeah, probably moisture
Yeah.
and temperature.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
usually
know.
I remember Dad would always get onions and potatoes. He'd get like a huge, I don't know what size, like a huge bag of potatoes, and we had like a half basement, and he'd put both of those down there in the basement. And I know by the end of the season, like by springtime, the potatoes would start. growing those little sprouts and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, which you could take them and throw them in the dirt, and they're
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah,
They're
because you don't need a
they're
cut of a potato. It doesn't really matter. It'll just grow pretty much.
yeah,
But yeah, that's
yeah.
another
So
thing.
that's
That's another thing to think about
good.
when prepping is how long can food be stored for, and what you can do to make that food last longer.
Yeah, and I've never stored anything other than potatoes and onions. I've seen videos, like a lot of stuff on Instagram, like kind of preppers or not necessarily preppers, but like homesteaders and
Hmm.
stuff like that, where they build those cellars and stuff. Which I think would be so cool to do. Um, but I've seen, like cabbage and it's surprising to me what they put in them cellars that would keep. But I think a big part of it is making sure there's not a lot of moisture on them. Like if there's direct water on them, they mold.
Hmm. Yeah, I
But
mean, it's weird for potatoes. I don't know if you could do this, but like a lot of vegetables, you could pickle them to make them last longer or make
oh
them
yeah,
last pretty much
yep.
forever. But I don't know if you could do that with potatoes. I think they'd probably just fall apart. So it
Yeah.
depends on from crop to crop what you can do, what you need it for, things like that. Like
Uh,
uh,
um,
bringing it back to the whole like what would people um, grow in this circumstance, and yeah, like it was just really different for a lot of people, and I think I was the only one that said corn, and
really?
yeah, and I was thinking of it as not only like
Well,
a
there's
food
some
for
great
myself.
things you can make out of corn.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about not only food for myself, corn, but say you have like chickens or goats or something. I assume goats can eat it, but like
Yep.
then
Yep.
that corn could feed
Yep.
them as well. And that's what I was thinking of with corn. And I think most
Yeah.
people just thought
Well,
of eating it themselves.
yeah. Which corn isn't really, I think, very nutritious to humans.
Yeah, probably not.
Stuff you get at the store. Um, I'm sure if you changed it up to some different older kind of, not older, but I don't know how to. I mean, I know there's different um, types of corn that are probably more nutritious.
Hmm.
Um, like I know the stuff we buy in the store, I'm pretty sure it's not like very healthy for us anyway. Um, even though it's delicious,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
yeah, I mean, like like think of corn, like you said, that you could feed your animals. You can make, grind it up, make breads
hmm hmm
or
that's what I said
something with,
as well. Yeah.
tortilla, whatever. So there's a lot that you can do with it. And for me, like instantly when you say corn, my thought goes to how do I put this? Fermentation.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
Make good
you
old.
know, keeping your mental in a good place is nice, and fermentation
Mm-hmm.
helps with that. Every once in a while, it's just a thing humans have always done,
Yeah,
humans have
yeah,
always liked. So it's a good way
yeah.
to be like,
Well,
oh
and you
yeah,
can do that with any of that stuff too. Anything with sugar,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And sugar can be made from a lot
but
of stuff, but I think sugar is probably going to be harder to be processed and made in your own like garden or homestead
oh
than
yeah,
anything else.
yeah. Well, I don't know.
um, what's it
For
called?
me, like with sugar, the use of sugar is very seldom.
Yeah.
Um, and most stuff that I like that has sugar already has sugar in it,
Hmm.
like corn and
And
um,
fruit.
potatoes and all. It's I'm more, yeah, it's But I mean, you can make sugar out of all that stuff.
Hmm.
I mean,
Well,
sugar
it's
beets.
like,
There's plenty of sugar beets on the side of the road.
yeah, but maybe there won't be.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
See,
I know.
what's it called? I was gonna say, oh, fruits as well. Like
Mm,
apparently, I mean,
mm-hmm.
depending on the fruit, could be a little bit harder to grow. But like, say strawberries or raspberries or whatever, if you need to preserve them,
Oh yes.
which is part of prepping once
Oh,
again. If you need to preserve them, you make jam, you make jelly, and that's a way to make that stuff last longer. Or you can make I've seen people make fruit leather out of it, like dehydrated fruit leather,
yep,
and then
yep,
that's really easy to store and it lasts for a while.
yep. Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, all that the prepping. I mean, all you're preparing is for the winter, so that's what they used to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
the canning and the storing of food. But yeah, I like all those. So it's funny because growing up, I always had a garden. Me
Mm-hmm.
and my mom did. Um, and we mostly, let's see, I think we grew tomatoes, cucumbers, jalapenos. I would say kind of like your basic garden.
Yeah.
Basically anything to make a salsa. And then
Basically,
on top of that,
salsa verde.
strawberries and raspberries. And at, at one point, I decided to I did a garden on my own. Not a garden. Well, I tried to grow blackberries,
Mm-hmm.
and they grew pretty good. Grew for 2 years with no um oh, what do you call it? Without producing any fruit. Um,
Really?
and then the third year that I had them, we were getting ready to move, and they started producing fruit. And they were real small, but it was right at the beginning of the season for the fruit, and we sold the house. Um, and I remember going back up to the house after we sold it, like probably a couple months later,
Mm-hmm.
and they knocked all that raspberries down or blackberries down and poured a foundation and built a shop on top of it.
I mean,
Three 3 years of three
yeah,
years of work, and I only got like a little bit of fruit out of it. It
yeah,
was
and that's something when I was talking about it at work that people brought up is fruit tends to be tends to take longer to like
yeah.
produce and stuff like that before you can actually yield it. And
Yep.
I was talking about how
Well, I
like
think they're a little bit more temperamental.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
they're a little bit more exposed to bugs and
hmm hmm
environment, I think.
yeah.
But I don't know.
I
I'm
mean,
not
it makes
no.
sense. They're sweet and above the ground and easily accessed, and
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
makes it much easier for them to go bad and get ruined and
Well,
birds
I've
eat them.
had strawberry. Exactly. I've had strawberry patches that did phenomenal, but the birds just destroyed them. Like
Hmm.
I never got anything out of them because the birds. But um, yeah, I think it's one of those things. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you think of this side of the prepping is in food and sustainability, it gets a lot. You're gonna have to put in a lot of work, but it's
Yeah.
probably worth it. No, I mean it is
Well,
worth it.
it is worth it. I mean, I know guys that will can um a lot of vegetables and they actually can meats like
Mm, okay.
their harvest from the season,
Hmm.
elk and deer and whatever, which I always thought would be kind of not so great, but
Yeah,
the
but
more I think about it,
at the end of the day,
like I mean, if you season it right and all you got to do is open it up and heat it up, and you got, you know, a stew or
Yeah,
um, you got meat that's already done. You don't even have to heat it up. Actually, I mean, it's already been cooked and preserved and
yeah,
everything, so it's
cooked and
good to go.
preserved.
You open it up and you can eat right out of that jar. Um, my buddy does a lot. He does elk, deer, salmon. They go up to northern Idaho, or not take that back. The Oregon coast
Yeah.
and catch a lot of salmon, tuna.
Mm,
Which tuna is really really good. You know, it's got good fats in it, and
yeah. It's pretty good
um,
fish.
yeah, and you get a lot out of it.
Oh yeah,
But
water's
it's
huge.
I remember growing up and like people would like offer like, oh, I don't want canned meat, like or jarred meat, like that's gross. But now I'm like, that's not a bad idea, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's how they used
To,
to do it.
yeah,
I mean they didn't
it,
always
it really
have
is. Like,
grocery stores and plastic packaging and refrigeration.
no, I know. And I was watching a video on, I think I sent it to you about how they preserve meat just under salt. You got a bunch of salt.
You might have. I've seen that stuff before. But yeah, they used to salt things and
Like
they
they
used to.
didn't do anything. They just like set the meat on like a bed of salt and then put a bed of salt on top of it and
Yep.
let it sit and
Yeah, and then it gets
it
that hard
cured and
exterior and
yep,
keeps
yep.
itself preserved.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, you think about any of it, it's a lot of it's salt that preserves it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
pretty much. I mean, a lot of canned stuff has a lot of salt in it to keep it,
mhm,
not from going bad. Everything like that.
I love salt. It's so good.
I mean, yeah, it's great. It makes
I
everything taste
so
good.
for me, salt like so growing up, my dad had a disease where salt or sodium would affect his oh it affected his equilibrium.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so if he had too much of it, it'd make him dizzy,
Oh, yeah. Make him
and make him
sick.
sick.
Yeah.
It's called Meniere's. I think it's called Meniere's disease.
Meniere's.
Um, Meniere's. It's an inner ear disease. Um, I don't know all the facts on it. But it affected him pretty young.
Mm, okay.
Um, and even still to this day, he can't have a lot of salt or sodium. Um,
Huh.
like it really affects him.
Hmm.
So because of that, we went on, I would not say a diet, but kind of a diet. Mom would not cook with salt
Yeah.
because it affected dad.
Oh,
So, um, and I don't know if you guys noticed or like I put salt on everything.
yeah.
Growing up with food without salt in it, it was everything was bland. And as soon as I was old enough to buy my own salt, I was
Buying it
pouring
by those
salt on
big
everything.
tubs.
Yeah, yeah. So everything I do is salt, and um, luckily I don't have to deal with what Dad has to deal with, but
Yeah, it seems
which
like it
would suck.
sucks.
Yeah, like there's a lot of foods that he loves, and he
Hmm.
just can't have them. I mean, he'll every once in a while he'll just suffer, but it messes him up for a couple of days.
Yeah. Um, and
When,
that's this is another good thing, like good segue into prepping, and that's medicines.
yeah,
Is I mean, I'm pretty sure medicine goes bad, but like at the end of the day, like what would it do if it goes bad? Just not be as strong or something like that. Like I don't know medicine, but
yeah.
I feel like
I
at the end of the day,
I
it's
always
still better
wondered
to have
about
it.
that. I was wondering about like you get prescription medication that expires in state. Like, why does it expire?
Yeah,
Is
no
it
one
like you
knows.
said? Is it not that strong? Is it because the FDA says you have to put an
Okay.
expiration date?
So it's pretty much exactly what I said. It's just change in chemical composition, which means it might not work, or a decrease in strength. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, in reality, unless it's like an actual like drug that says do not take this if it expires ever, I'm sure you could just store it and it would still work.
If it said that, I wouldn't want to be taking it anyway.
Yeah, I know, right?
On this date, you cannot have any more, or you will.
Yeah, it's like it could just reverse the effects if you just take it after Tuesday of next month.
Yep, yep. No kidding. That's yeah. I'm sitting here watching the squirrels, uh, which is funny, talking about prepping and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
want to get back to the medicine thing, but I've been watching the squirrels. They've been tearing up my yard,
Mm-hmm.
which whatever, I don't
Because it's the
care. But
winter.
but it's very interesting talking about prepping. They've been in my yard all summer long,
Mm-hmm.
and I never really noticed it until now. Like I see these like little patches of green where they've dug up my yard
Yeah.
to get the walnuts
That they
and the nuts
stored
and
in the
stuff like
summer.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
it's crazy. Like it's pretty cool. It's really cool. I mean, there's holes all over my yard, which sucks, but um, that's pretty cool that they can do that and survive the winter.
Yeah, and I mean, even learning about stuff like that is interesting. Like, do you think if somehow we were able to protect it from squirrels, would we be able to store our own like
Oh yeah,
medicine food under the ground?
yeah. Well, and I think that's where cellars and stuff come from. Like you go deep enough, and you can preserve. You get down in that area where it's like a neutral. I think it's like 65 degrees or something. Like cellars are,
Yeah.
um, where you can preserve that food. It's not too hot, not too cold. The temperature outside doesn't really affect it too much. Um, yeah, I've been thinking about making. Well, I have a half basement. It don't have enough room to do what I want to do, but I've been thinking about making like a cellar. I think it'd be cool.
That would be. I wonder how
But
hard it would be to
also,
actually do that.
well, you'd have to bring a shovel, and then I
Maybe,
could sit there and
maybe.
watch you dig it out.
I could use my hands.
Whatever you do, I'll just sit there and watch you do it. I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
uh, Speaking of that, buddy, um, big time conspiracy theorist, which whatever, I don't care. Um, Last year he was like, "Oh, everything's going bad," and he spent thousands and thousands of dollars on seeds and
Seeds?
built this garden that's bigger than my whole property. I'd say like half an acre. This huge, huge garden, and he's like, "Yeah, this is what we're gonna survive on." I'm like, "Wait a minute, we?" He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna help me maintain it." I'm like, "No, I'm not."
You're gonna help me
I, I
maintain it.
I've dealt with like growing up. I've had gardens that were decent size. They're not stupid crazy, but um, they were decent size. It'd take a couple hours to weed them. They were
Yeah.
big. Um, yeah, and he planned all that. He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna help me maintain this. We're gonna have a bunch of vegetables and stuff like that." I'm like, dude, I'm not weeding that for one, and two, I'm even if we did weed it and have it maintained at harvest, I'm not dealing with that much, you know, fruit and vegetables like that. That's insane.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I don't know if he depended on me on it, but it went south pretty quick. It overgrown with weeds, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
it was kind of funny. It's sad they spent that much money on it, but
Yeah,
like,
but
man, we can do so much more with that kind of money and on a smaller garden. But
oh yeah, a smaller garden, and once again, go for like medicines or
mhm.
ways to preserve water. I mean, just buying water bottles is a good idea. Filters.
Yeah, yep. Well, and even if you grew like watermelon, cantaloupe, there's a lot of water in all those. They like
Yeah,
absorb a lot of that
lettuce.
water.
Lettuce.
Yeah, lettuce.
It's pretty much the
Actually, I
only
was
thing
talking
that grows.
to my boss the other day. I'm not sure how we came across it, but we're talking about onions, and he used to be a medic, and he was talking about how they responded to an incident in an onion field, and they uh, they had and during the incident they had needles and stuff like that, and they had nowhere to put them, which I find funny because you're a paramedic, you should have somewhere like
Yeah,
a
like a
cap.
some sort of like dump box.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, they put the needles in the onions so nobody get poked,
Hmm.
which
It's
that's
I
fine,
mean,
whatever.
yeah, it's like a pincushion almost.
Yeah. Well, once they figured it out and everything got figured out, the insurance had to pay for an acre surrounding that area
Oh
where
my
the needles
god.
were. Yeah, because I guess the needles absorb, or not the needles, the onions absorb anything around them.
Mm.
So, and the medication that they were using was to restart a heart.
Oh, was it like Narcan?
Uh, I don't know if it was Narcan, but yeah, it's something along that line. But it was to restart a heart. So if somebody's heart's normal, and they ate this onion, that had medication that was in it, that
Hmm.
you know would probably kill them because it put their heart in whatever.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, onions just absorb everything that are around them. It's um like, so you got to make sure the water is like pretty clean and stuff like that, which is interesting. I never knew that about onions, but
I mean, it makes sense. They're a root crop, so they would suck up everything into their roots and
yeah,
not
I would think
absorb shit
potatoes
from
would
the
be the
ground.
same thing.
Yeah, probably.
Potatoes and carrots, anything that sucks up water like that. Well, and you'd think any of it would be that way, but
Yeah. But definitely root crops would be like my main like that's definitely that makes the most sense.
yeah, I've seen which is kind of cool. I don't even know how to explain it, but they're basically mounds of dirt,
Hmm.
like as a garden, and they put they're mostly root crop. I think it's all root crop that are in this mount of dirt. And they can, because of the mountain, how deep it is, and everything like that. They can, I think they can run it pretty late into the season.
Hmm.
It's pretty interesting. I've never really looked into it too much, but um, it's just a different. And you can insulate it too. You can put straw and stuff on it, so it can go even later into the season. I'm
Hmm.
not sure what that's called though. It's kind of cool, like all the different ways of um, growing growing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the the different environments the different things need to be in makes it so people have to get creative with how they can grow it on a bigger scale or to better fit their needs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and even like I mean, corn. I think it's pretty easy to grow. Um, Something I've always wanted to grow, and I don't think I can keep is agave.
Yeah, I don't think you
Um,
can even grow that.
It'll grow through the summer, but I don't think I'd make it through the winter. It's too cold. But then again, I mean, maybe I'd just build a house around it or something.
Yeah, and one thing that like I always think about garden, right? And I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, like we have to design our gardens to grow certain crops at certain times because they can't grow in other times. And
Hmm.
then someone at work was like, greenhouse, just make a
Yeah,
greenhouse. And I was like, why did I not think of a greenhouse? I don't know why I didn't
yeah.
think of
Well,
that.
I mean, and you can do the simplest greenhouse. I know. Actually, I had the remodel I'm doing right now. I had some single pane windows in this part of the house, and I posted them on Facebook, and
Hmm.
some lady wanted them. She was like, "Yeah, I'm building a greenhouse." Um,
And those would work pretty
like
good.
yeah, she was like, they're they'll let the heat in or the sun in, and somewhat keep the heat in,
Hmm.
and so yeah, it's definitely like greenhouses are pretty cool. I wish I had one.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, you
but
got
then again,
space. You
you
could build one.
yeah, I know. But then again, you're gardening all season, all year.
I mean, yeah, but like
But I mean, a greenhouse, you're not dealing with weeds.
that's true. Greenhouses are, and you can grow a lot of other plants too, like herbs would
Yeah,
be easier to grow because they're
herbs.
like smaller. You can grow a
I
lot of them.
want to get into herbs. I
I
really
do
really
too.
want to get into herbs. And then again, like what you were saying, is medicine. I think herbs kind of falls right into that.
Yeah, like
Um,
traditional medicine,
yeah.
like teas. Teas are really good
Yep.
for the body.
Yep. I love tea. Especially when I'm
I'm growing.
sick.
It's growing on me. It's growing on me. I didn't like it at first, but I've been giving it more and more of a shot, and I'm like, you know what? I understand it. It's good.
Do you drink coffee?
No, not really. Um,
Well, and so I think tea is. It's not so much the caffeine; it's more um, the hot drink
mhm.
has some flavor.
And that's why I was trying out tea because at work they have coffee, and
Hmm.
I was having it every once in a while, and I was like, you know what? As much as I enjoy coffee, it really does not make me feel good by any means. I always feel disgusting after I drink coffee. So I was like, let me try out tea, and then I tried out the tea, and I was like, you know what? It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, okay. What's the
Anyway,
last thing you heard then?
they had coffee at work, and you're trying tea.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the last thing I said then.
Okay. Well, and maybe you just cut out that point.
Yeah, I basically it was just like I tried tea because coffee makes me feel gross, and then I was like, becoming more accustomed to it. Tastes better.
Yeah.
I enjoy the flavors of it more.
Are you on? Are we on?
Yeah. Why?
Oh,
I
damn
never stopped
it.
recording. I'm just gonna cut it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, like there's a lot of good flavors of tea.
Hmm.
Um, I like tea in the summer. Just that ice cold tea. But then
Me
in the
too.
winter, when
I love
you
cold
can
tea.
change it up to um, just the different flavors, like the honey,
Hmm.
or not the honey, but the lemon.
Yeah, honey lemon.
Yeah, the stuff that soothes your throat,
Yeah.
and it's just a tea. It's natural.
Hmm.
Like it don't last very long, but it soothes your throat, and it's
And
good.
it's, I mean, it's not
I
that hard to make. It's just
no.
hot water and plants.
Yep. Well, and there's a lot of like going back to the herbs, like there's a lot of stuff. I don't know what it would take to, I guess, prep or harvest, um, like chili powder and um, I mean, I don't know if you can make pepper or grow pepper in this area, but
You should be able
um,
to, especially jalapeno. Jalapeno tends to be like, um,
Well, like chili peppers and stuff like that. Yeah, and dry them out and grind them. And like thyme, I like thyme. Cumin. I
Cumin.
don't know. I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's probably just like the rest of them. You can grow like a bottle of that up through like 2, 3 bottles a year. A little, shaker
Yeah.
bottles or whatever you call them. Um, Thyme I use a little bit. Pepper I use a lot. Garlic salt,
Yeah.
chili
Salt.
powder.
And those
Yeah.
are like, obviously you can grow garlic, you can grow all the peppers, you can
Mm.
grow all that kind of stuff.
Oh, so this last winter, I took garlic.
Hmm.
I took a so I had a garlic clove that I bought from the store that for some reason I didn't use, and it started growing sprouts. So then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna take that and do kind of a greenhouse in the house
Yeah.
in the kitchen window because it gets sun all the time. So I broke them up into 12, I think, and I nursed them clear up until like when they needed to be planted in the ground.
Yeah.
So I prepped this whole area by the house, which was right in front of the kitchen window, and um, got it all good and going. And they were growing. They grew probably 6 inches, like the stem part, within like 2 weeks. They're doing super good.
Hmm.
And then my dog decided that was going to be where he laid when it got
Oh.
hot. So he had to dig it up. And I had, out of the whole batch, I think I did 2 different batches. I had like 14 or 20. I can't remember. I had a lot of garlic. Um,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, why do you need that much garlic? I'm like, have you seen the garlic? The braided garlic
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
strands. My
Yeah.
aunt used to make those, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make like because garlic will last a long time,
Yeah.
and I use it quite a bit. That's what I wanted to do with it, but my stupid dog ruined them. I was so
Stupid dog
pissed.
ruined it. That's
Yeah,
funny.
they were growing so good too. It's irritating. That's another one though. Garlic's really really easy to grow.
It like, I mean, I assume it's just root crops. Like,
Yeah, it is. It really is, and it likes water. It's like onion, likes water, and um, of course you can't overwater it, but once you harvest them, you can dry them out and they'll last all season.
yeah.
Which, I mean, garlic's probably the best seasoning in the world.
Oh yeah, I think it is too. It's
Yeah,
definitely like, you can put it on pretty much anything.
yeah, well, yeah. I know. I remember my parents talking about because my aunt would grow a huge garden of garlic, and she'd braid those things, and she'd sell them for a chunk of money. Like she made some money off of them, which I don't see them anymore. But
Yeah. And I mean,
I think it'd be cool to do
that's
that.
another thing to think about when prepping is like, what foods could you grow that might other people need that you could trade for in terms of either money or other food that you might need. I think a lot of people, when thinking about times to prep, they end up thinking of like, oh, everybody's the enemy. I can't socialize with anybody. But it's like, people not only are you gonna have that, you're gonna have that risk, but you're also gonna have that, like, maybe you need something and they need something, and you both, kind of trade for them. Okay, so yeah, I was talking about trading with other people, trading food and supplies or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
And that's a thing to think about when when prepping is what might you need, what might other people need, and stuff like that.
All that prepping,
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, somebody might have a like canned meat, and they want some vegetables, onions or potatoes, or like you might not be as good as hunting as they are, and they have tons of canned meat, and you have a ton of canned vegetables.
Hmm. And yeah,
Um,
you can come together and kind of make
yeah,
something work.
rock soup.
Rock soup. Hmm. Water, salt, and rocks. um, but yeah, I mean, once again, I said something along the lines of like a lot of people immediately think that everybody is going to be dangerous and scary, and you need to stay away from people in a spot where prepping might be like a necessary thing to have done. And it's important to think on both sides of like people are valuable, but people are also scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more you
Well,
have, the
yeah,
more people might
absolutely,
want and stuff like that.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you think about like you know people that can meat.
Hmm.
I don't know that. I know how to can vegetables,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I know if you don't do meat right, it's it could be poisonous or
very deadly.
make you sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so like you said, just sharing that knowledge or swapping, that or sharing or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, even sharing the knowledge with each other. Just be like, hey, can you teach me how
Yeah.
to do that? And I'll teach you how to grow this.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But,
Which, I mean, it don't have to be like I said before at the beginning. I think I said it don't have to be like end of world stuff.
no, it
You
doesn't.
think about you think about what it takes to build even a small garden, um, and preserve some fruit
Hmm.
or some meat. Um, it could last you a whole winter. Um, which I think a lot of people don't think about. Like
Yeah.
it's easy just to go to the store and get a package of meat and some vegetables and throw some stuff together. Um, but if that store's not there, what do we do?
Hmm. Yeah. Like, what if your
Even
store
in the
shuts down?
simplest situations, not simple, but again, not like end of world stuff. But we had snowmageddon,
Hmm.
which is what we called
Yeah.
here. I can't remember how much snow fell, but
It was a
it
lot.
took out. Yeah, it took out our grocery store. Um, so we didn't have groceries for I think a week.
Yeah, and see, that's scary, especially as the week goes
Yeah.
on, and you're sitting there like, oh, another day, it's still not open. Oh, another day, it's still not open.
Well, and if you're not prepared for that, you
Yeah.
think it's just another storm. Like right now it's snowing. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's how it started. It wasn't a big deal, and then it just kept dumping, and then it became a big deal. So then everybody panicked.
Hmm.
Um, which I mean, depending on your financial situation, you can't just go around and stock up on toilet paper and
Yeah. Yeah.
canned goods. But I mean that was kind of a scary situation. I mean it was very small and it was an eye opener. Like, hey, the, you know, it doesn't take much.
Mm-mm.
So to be kind of somewhat prepared, canned goods, vegetable, anything that can last even a week or a couple of days.
Yeah.
Um, I think for us, um, I mean, we always have canned goods, and I think we were pretty good. But I know there was people that panicked because they didn't have anything. because the store, like the roof collapsed, and you either had to go, you had to travel, which I think was a huge issue too because the snow was so
Yeah.
bad. Um, but I guess it goes back to prepping. Just even being able to prepare yourself for a week
Yeah. I
of
mean,
hard, hardship.
when we really think about it, right? Like, yeah, you might it might be a case of you literally have not enough money to spend
Yep.
on it, but if you're in the position where you have a little more money, if you really think about it, like you buy, say you want to supply for a month, and worst comes to worst, you only have one can of food for each day, but that's at the end of the day, you buy 30 cans of chilies, that's like $40.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
it
Well,
seems
and
like a
that.
lot for some people, but other people it's more of like a why not? Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Which, I mean, that stuff keeps forever.
Exactly.
Um, so even if you stocked up one can a month, you know that'll get you a couple.
I see what you're saying. Like literally just buy a single can like every month,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah. I
keeps
mean,
you
it's
stocked up.
$2 or $3 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, chili has meat and stuff and beans and proteins. Like
Yep.
a can of vegetables isn't probably going to do you a whole lot of good, but I mean, you could survive on a can of beans,
Yeah. Exactly.
which I think they did back in like World War II. It was a can of beans and
Yeah.
some water or some
Some
bread or some
beans,
shit.
water, bread. Yeah.
Um,
It won't
but
definitely
like,
won't
yeah,
be
like,
good, and you gotta stop yourself from like if you're in that situation, you need to understand rationing and how much
yeah,
will go how long.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, the whole prepping thing is, if you're prepared to prep and you're doing that, then you should know to ration. Um, and just like a can of beans is gonna go you like you said a day at least.
Yeah, like you'll be able to survive. It won't
Yeah,
be great, but you'll be able to do it.
I think on that note though, um, above all else, food wise, water is gonna get you further
Yeah, that's another thing.
than
I mean,
any.
like like bottled water, it doesn't really expire. It's
No,
water
it
in a
doesn't.
bottle. Like just
I
keep it in a
I
safe
used
area.
to buy those. I need to do it again. The 5 gallon water jugs.
Yeah.
I would buy them and put like I think like a tablespoon or two of can't remember if it's chlorine or bleach. I think it's chlorine.
Chlorine probably.
Yeah. Um, which honestly I don't think it needs any of it because the city uses enough of it.
Hmm.
But I would seal them with wax,
Yeah,
and
that's
I had I think 5 gallons of that. Well, actually, I think they were bigger than a gallon. I think they were. Anyway, I have a few of them, and then I would have some water that I would save that wasn't like drinkable, more like wastewater.
hmm
Um, but also, you could still like it was still sealed, but it wasn't like I wouldn't be like, yeah, let's drink it. Like we'd have to boil it to kind of sanitize it again, even though there was just probably no contaminants in it. But what I would consider wastewater, like for dishes or laundry or something like that. Um, I had quite a bit of water at our old house when um back back when you lived with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I was drinking from the tap, but I mean, at the end of the day, doesn't really matter. Like it's water.
Yeah. Well, and that was just stuff I had saved down in the basement. It, so anytime there was a storm, I would store some water, and then I'd store water in the tub.
Yeah,
I'd fill the tubs up.
I think he told that story last podcast episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I mean, you could tell it again, but just so whoever's listening,
Repeat.
watch the
No,
video
it
as
just
well.
I think I actually got that from your grandpa Davis. Um, anytime the power went out, or there was mostly when the power went out, um, or there was a storm, he'd fill the tub up with water, and it's more. I mean, tubs aren't super clean, but it was more kind of wastewater. Like you could take it out and you could boil it, and you'd be drinking water, or you can use it to flush the toilet or
Yeah,
something like that.
use it for all kinds of
So
things. It's
it's
water.
something I was, yeah. I mean, you could probably drink out of it, but um, you think about it, I think a tub is like 30 gallons, 40 gallons, maybe 50 gallons.
I don't know about that one. I don't. I have no idea.
But that's a lot of water. I
It
mean, you
is.
think
It
about
is.
it, like it that would probably last you over a week if you needed it
Mm-hmm.
to
And
drink. You
water
know,
is more important
if
than
you
the
get,
food.
it is. It's very important more than food. So um, that's some of like in a storm. I mean, we've never. I think the longest we've gone is like 6 hours without power,
Yeah.
um, which doesn't really affect water too much. Um, but we live in the city, so
Yeah.
if you were living off a well, it would affect it 100%. But that's where you store it. So
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it makes sense. Like, do anything you can to store water. Do anything you can to store food. Uh,
yeah. Well,
medicine.
and
Like,
like I can. Oh yeah. Even like you know, well, for me, painkillers aren't like a big thing, like ibuprofen and stuff, but stuff
yeah.
that can stop an infection. Um,
Antibiotics.
yeah,
I mean,
which I don't know.
painkillers
I
are a good
mean,
idea. Uh, like some stronger ones, maybe not Tylenol, but like a stronger painkiller just in case someone like breaks a leg or
yeah, yeah,
like gets cut, something like that. Then you painkiller
yeah,
maybe and some antibiotics.
yeah. Well, and then there again, knowing like the herbs and stuff like that
Hmm. Hmm.
they can use naturally to help with help with that kind of stuff. In case there's no medicine. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it's important. Like another thing that I've been low key keeping an eye out, and my girlfriend's been like kind of like, why like whenever we go somewhere where there's like a book or something like books, I like trying to keep
Oh
an eye
yeah,
out, and she's like, "Why are you like looking at that?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just keeping an eye out, because I'm like looking,
yeah,
I'm looking for like plant books or like maybe a medicine
yeah.
plant stuff like that." And I don't know why I started doing that, but it was literally just like a out of nowhere. I started doing that a little bit.
Well, and honestly, I have probably 3 or 4 books like that. I've tried to sit down and kind of read them, but like that doesn't go away unless it gets burned.
Yeah.
You know, that knowledge just sits there on the shelf. So if you came into that situation where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I have a book, let me look through it.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it goes back to prepping. Like you can not necessarily have all that stuff on hand, the different herbs and stuff like that, but you could have the knowledge on hand.
Yeah. Which
The
arguably
the
could be more
books,
important.
I mean, they're there. Like, why not? Like, they don't take up that much space. Like I said, you don't have to read the whole thing, or you don't
Oh
have to go
yeah,
through it at all. Just buy it and stick it on a shelf, and
yeah.
if the situation comes up where you need it, then I mean it's there. Otherwise, if the situation comes up where you need that book, more than likely there's not going to be internet.
Oh yeah. Especially if it's something like the power goes out.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if it's simple as that, like
Yeah.
hey, power goes out, all your food is gonna go rotten because it's not gonna come
Yep.
back up for a
Yep.
while. Then
Yep.
there you have a book.
Yep.
But
I think.
also,
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I was thinking about like I'm just trying to think of like other things that people could, because food and water is obviously like everybody knows that. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that those are the most important. But like, what else could they prep that would be a good idea? And backpacks. Like,
Mm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
people
Yep.
really underestimate how useful backpacks are and can be in any
Like a
situation.
go pack or
I mean,
just yeah.
any backpack really. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter as long as you have one, just like a regular
Yep.
size backpack.
Yep.
Like,
So
yeah.
one of the things I've always done um is in any of my rigs, and I'm mostly in the wintertime. Um, I try to keep like water in the rigs, like bottled water in the rigs during the
Mm-hmm.
summer.
Oh yeah.
Um, but you know, like through the winter, I like a chain. Um, Trying to think of
Oh,
what
I
else I
see.
put
Yeah,
in
what
there.
have you put in there?
Huh?
I was like, yeah, you're trying to think of what else you keep in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So I think a chain. Um, one of the things I'm really big on, and I tell mom all the time, to have in the rig or any of our rigs for that matter is either a blanket
Mm-hmm.
or blankets, um, or coats
Yeah.
and gloves.
Yeah, clothing
Um,
is.
Basically winter gear, like extra winter
Oh
gear
yeah.
that are in the rigs. And um, at first she didn't really understand it,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I told her like, you know, we don't travel far from the house, but actually, I could tell you a story real quick. I was driving home from work one night, and the rig I was driving, it's like a 20-minute drive from my house.
Mm-hmm.
It was middle of winter. It was 20 degrees. The rig I was driving didn't have heater, which didn't matter because I ran out of gas about 5 miles out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Um, had a phone, called, nothing. Like I can't remember what the situation was, but missed the call. She didn't. She was. I sat out in the cold, and at that time I was young enough that I didn't need a coat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was tough enough. I didn't need a coat. Yeah. So I was sitting out there with a coat, without a coat. I mean, um, and just freezing. I mean, I was out there for an hour and a half, which honestly I could have, at that time, probably worked in the town. Um,
Yeah, you probably could have.
but it was an eye opener of like how quickly, even how close I was to town, like how cold it got,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how the situation switched so bad or quickly, um, to kind of scary. You know what I mean? Um,
Oh yeah, I would. I mean, I've been thinking of the same thing recently. Like, I've always been a fan of the cold in the winter, but like this one specifically, just thinking a little more. Like yesterday, I walked outside and I think it was like 20 degrees at 4 p.m.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
like I was going to work and I was like, holy crap, it is cold. And I like really started
Yep.
thinking about it and I was like, I don't have any gloves. I have like one
Hmm.
jacket that's decent enough for this weather. Like I was like, holy crap. If I was not at home, this would be a problem. I would
Yep.
This would be dangerous weather.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at is having that extra gear in a rig. Like even if it's, I mean, even if you're driving 10 miles, you
Yeah,
don't know what's going to happen. You might get wet. You might, you know, whatever. You might have to pull over and change your tire 10 minutes from your house and get you soaked. And
oh yeah.
um,
Then you're
just
colder.
changing your gear out just a little bit makes a huge difference. And I'm a huge believer in that because I've been in situations um, where I've needed dry clothes,
Hmm.
an extra coat or a blanket. Um, so what why? I mean, just it doesn't take much to put an extra coat or a blanket or some
Hmm.
kind of protective gear for winter in your rig during the
Yeah,
winter.
especially if you just like take a look in your closet and just go, do I have anything that I
Uh-huh.
haven't worn in, a couple months? Like at that
Yeah,
point,
I
toss it in
don't
your
take
car.
much. Like, yeah, I don't take much at all. Like, I mean, you think about a wet coat,
Hmm.
and you take that off and put on a dry long sleeve flannel,
Hmm.
makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's it's really something to think about. I think is what
It is.
a lot of people get so caught up in everyday life that they don't think about it, and it's
Hmm.
something you should definitely at least consider.
I really think when it starts snowing, I think that putting an extra, even if it's a blanket, it don't matter.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of stories where people have gone up to the mountains just to, hang out and go drive around and get stuck, and then they freeze to death because all they have is a sweater
yeah, just a hoodie.
because they were in their car and it was warm, and then they got stuck, and then they ran out of gas, so the car died, and
Hmm.
and then they froze to death because all they had was a sweater. Um, so it don't take much to throw a coat or a blanket or I mean I think a blanket's probably a better situation because you can snuggle people up.
Yeah,
Um, but
I mean,
a
I don't know
blanket
though.
stores
It's I mean,
pretty easy in a rig, especially during the winter.
yeah,
Um,
and don't get like I mean anything helps, but like don't get one of those like cheap or not cheap, but like thin little fuzzy ones just because they're soft.
no,
You
no,
gotta get
no,
like a
yeah,
bigger one.
like a wool blanket
Yeah, wool
or
would be insanely good.
those itchy blankets that everybody hates.
Yeah.
But you will love when you're stuck in that kind of situation.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
But
So
no, yeah, I always have multiple sweaters and coats and stuff in the rigs because we like to go out to the hills and shoot guns in the winter and stuff like that. And I've dealt with it several times, like where not life threatening, but um,
a little bit
like
warmer.
hey, I'm frozen and
Yeah.
I take that off. It's wet and cold, and put this on, and
Hmm.
um,
And see, even
so
like I said, even just going outside like yesterday or today, like
mhm,
something about it just being this cold was like, whoa,
yeah.
this is
Well,
a cold cold.
it's gonna get colder. I
Oh
can
yeah,
tell you that
yeah.
right now.
I mean,
It's supposed to
yesterday
get
was
down to 6 degrees.
yeah, yesterday was 20 and now it's 15 right now. It's like, it's
Yeah.
already dropping a lot.
Well, I got to get ready here in a little bit. Well, probably not till this evening, but
Hmm.
um, my new job, I work for the city, so we're gonna plow the streets. So if it
Oh
keeps
really?
snowing, I gotta I gotta go plow here in a couple hours. But
Well, you're doing important work. 'Cause
well,
I know
yeah.
people would.
Luckily, I'm in a heated truck
Yeah.
somewhat, but there again, if the heat goes out,
Oh yeah.
I got I got multiple layers on.
Hmm. Which there you go. Time to prep for the your snow.
Yeah, prep for the situation.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're good there. That's a pretty productive one. I think it's pretty good for our first time back in a month.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yep, it is. It is, and I hope people watch and or listen and maybe take some inspiration and go out buy a jacket and some
Yeah,
beans.
definitely. Just prep for your situation.
Yeah,
Think
exactly.
think about the long term.
Hmm. Go out, buy a
Or
jacket,
yeah,
some water, some chili, and then
yeah.
heck, I mean,
Sit down and watch Die Hard.
yep, watch some Die Hard. And that's probably the best way to end it. Just
Yeah.
but yeah, alrighty. Hopefully we have more coming soon, and maybe hopefully
Yeah,
a couple of
absolutely.
guests. Um, and yeah, I'd like to get back into this. So like, share, follow,
Push the
subscribe,
buttons.
push all the buttons, and we'll see you next time.
All right.